Whatever you've heard about achieving success, creating abundance, being happy, feeling loved, and even achieving spiritual awakening is a big old pile of horse poo. In the old paradigm, it's all about being clear on your outcomes, having the right mindset, a clear why, visualizing and feeling the success, and then chunking things down to actionable steps to get to whatever it is that you think you want. Now, I'm not saying those things aren't helpful. They are important. But have you done those things and not had the results you were expecting? Maybe even no result whatsoever? What happened to the abundance or the impact or fulfillment that you wanted? So what are you doing wrong? And then there's another issue. Maybe you do actually achieve some outcome. And sure, you're happy with whatever it is for a little while, but then that satisfaction vanishes and you need to chase something else. You're driven to achieve the next thing, feeling anxious or stressed because you have the feeling that if you sit too long, then you feel like you're being lazy or you're afraid it could all just disappear. What's really keeping you from having what it is that you want, especially if you're actually doing all the things? And what makes it feel like you're struggling to get there and not even enjoying it when you do? Why does it feel that whatever you do, it just doesn't seem to be enough? It all comes down to how high your frequency resonance is. How high your frequency resonance is 100% influences how clearly and quickly you manifest, how much abundance you have, what kind of synchronicity and magic you get to experience, the depth of connection you get to feel with the people in your life, the level of impact you have, and even whether you get to spiritually awaken in this lifetime. So how do you increase your resonance? I'm going to share 3 takeaways to help you to increase your frequency resonance so whatever it is you want to achieve, whether it's success, more love, spiritual awakening, whatever, it's way more likely you'll experience it. My name is Cheong. I catalyze your shift from the ordinary to the exhilaration of the quantum by giving you the tools to change your frequency resonance so that the life you live matches the life you dream of. Takeaway number 1, how to tell how high your frequency resonance is. So here's the thing. What your life looks like is a reflection of how high your frequency resonance is. I have a client named Isabel who had, in her 30s, tried a whole bunch of jobs, trying to find fulfillment, the right fit for her, and she was just keep getting frustrated. Her husband was a real estate agent at the time, and he was helping an investor look for investment properties. So my client got curious. What are you doing? How is this person investing? How are they choosing to do what they're doing? And she started doing her own research because she was so fascinated by the idea of investment properties. She found an investment property that she and her husband could invest in, but they didn't quite have enough money. So she pooled some money from family members and they invested together. This investment did amazing, so much better than they thought. So her friends who'd heard about their success asked her, hey, if we give you our money, would you invest for us? And she thought to herself, sure, I really like doing this. But before I go further, I probably should form a little company, do a little more research. So that's how she began this new company of hers. She makes another investment, does really great, and her business really starts to grow. Now, as her business is growing and she's loving what she's doing, she starts personal development because she's realizing there are things in her life that she probably could be optimizing and relationships that she could, feel better in. So she starts not only doing personal development seminars, but she starts to do therapy too. So what's amazing is she's realizing I have these conscious patterns that I do, that I behave within, that I think within, that I need to change in order to make my life better. So she's using her personal development tools, she's using therapy, her life gets better, and her business is really starting to take off. But the challenge is that despite her business starting to take off, she's starting to come into conflict with her new business partner. They're kind of muddling along, but still the business is doing really well. And Isabel is able to buy her dream home, which has these spectacular views. But despite having more material abundance, things aren't going so well internally, meaning she's working 16 hours a day. She's working in the only room in the spectacular house that doesn't have a view, that's tiny. Things between her and her business partner are getting so bad, they're actually thinking about having a business divorce. So this puts Isabel into a lot of fear because she's thinking, oh my God, how am I going to pay for this house, this life that we have, if my business partner and I split up? So a friend happens to send her one of my YouTube clips, and she starts to learn about frequency work. And as she learns more and more, she's thinking, oh my God, I totally have all these unconscious distortion patterns that I can't resolve. I can see them in my life, and I can see them playing out, and I really need to address them. So being the person that she is, she intensively throws herself into frequency work, and she releases so many of her distortion patterns. And as she releases her distortion patterns, her frequency resonance starts to rise. Now, Isabel is a kind of intense person. So she's like, okay, well, what distortion pattern do I need to release so that my frequency resonance can rise more optimally and more? And what can change? Because she's starting to discover that she has different thoughts, different emotions, new perspective. She can have a different kind of conversation with her business partner because she's not as triggered by what her business partner is saying. So meaning what used to trigger her about her business partner no longer does. She can even see her business partner's perspective. They have a different kind of relationship now. They decide to hire more team. They change their work schedules. And Isabel, because she's released her distortion patterns, doesn't feel like she has to punish herself by working really long hours and staying in this windowless room. She starts to feel like, wait a minute, I deserve to enjoy my abundance. She can move into an office in one of the rooms with a view. Instead of working 16 hours a day, she's now working 6 and only 4 days a week, which means she can spend more time with her kids. She has more time to travel with her husband. They get to enjoy different family gatherings abroad. All of this starts to change because now how she feels about everything has started to shift, and she can finally enjoy the abundance that she's created. Only when you raise your frequency resonance does the quality of your life reflect it. So what is your frequency resonance? And how do you raise it? So everything is vibrating. The rate of vibration dictates the form. So if you take something really simple and physical like water, when the molecules are vibrating really fast, it's steam. And when the molecules slow down in vibration, it becomes liquid water. And when that molecular vibration slows down again, it becomes solid or density or ice. So if you take that idea and extrapolate it all the way out to consciousness, to the oneness, to the field, to pure source, or whatever you call that very highly resonating consciousness from which everything comes and to which everything returns, that is vibrating so high that we cannot yet measure it with our physical tools, when that drops in vibration to have an experience other than the infinite oneness, well, then something called frequencies are formed. When that vibrational level slows down even more, it becomes what you and I talk about as energy. And when that vibrational level slows down even more, it becomes emotions, thoughts, physical form, density, or matter. So if everything is vibrating and my vibration dictates what my reality looks like, how do I increase my frequency resonance or my vibration so my reality can be better? Well, the first thing is self-awareness, and it's self-awareness of two things. The first thing is that you're aware that you are co-creating your reality, whether you're doing it intentionally or you're doing it unconsciously. When you're doing it intentionally, you're recognizing that how high your frequency resonance is or not is what is creating the reality around you. The second thing is to recognize the patterns, the choices that you're making that are causing your frequency resonance to be the way it is. So to recognize, geez, I am going into judgment here. I am limiting myself in this other way. I do blame over here instead of taking responsibility. So those two forms of self-awareness are really critical in becoming able to raise your frequency resonance. Now, the thing is, your frequency resonance isn't always stable. It's changing all the time. I mean, just think about it, right? There's some days you wake up and you're feeling amazing because you've had a great night's sleep. You get up and you do something that nourishes you. You exercise. You're feeling great. So, of course, you feel better. Your resonance is higher. But other days, you wake up, you haven't slept so great, you look at your phone right when you wake up, you're responding to a work crisis. Now your frequency resonance is in the floor because you're just like, everything sucks. So those are the days where your frequency resonance is lower. So the thing is, as your frequency resonance rises, as you release something that I call distortion patterns, which I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes, as you start to become more aware of your center, not be so influenced by the people around you in terms of their emotionality, their stresses, their anxieties, then your frequency resonance can really start to rise. So that's what I teach when I teach frequency work. It's about how to not only release these distortion patterns, which cause your frequency resonance to rise, just like a hot air balloon when you're chucking out those heavy sandbags, you also learn to come into your center to achieve a higher level of neutrality so that what's happening around you doesn't affect your own frequency resonance. So how you know that your frequency resonance is rising is in part how you feel. How do you feel about your relationships? How do you feel about yourself? How do you feel about life? Also, what does your life look like? Is there more magic? Is there more synchronicity? Is there more inspired productivity? What opportunities fall into your lap from left field? All that stuff starts to happen more and more as your frequency resonance rises. Takeaway number 2, distortions crush your frequency resonance. So long before I knew anything about frequency work, I was living in San Francisco with my husband and partner, Chris, and we had a small real estate practice where we helped people buy and sell their homes. Now, we were really successful. We had a small team. We had people that we loved working with, generally speaking. But the challenge was I ran a ton of scarcity and a ton of fear patterns. So I always had to have everything perfect for our clients, because if I did anything wrong, I was terrified that they wouldn't refer us or they might even sue us. And so I just had a lot of fear all the time that if I wasn't perfect enough, something terrible would happen. Now, I was self-aware enough to know that something was terribly wrong, that this is not normal patterning. I shouldn't be in this much fear all the time. And the level of anxiety I was feeling was something that I was creating. So I found out about frequency work from a friend, and I started to release my distortion patterns. And as I started to release my distortion patterns around fear and around not being enough and about being terrified that we wouldn't have enough, I started to feel different about our clients and how it was that I related to them. And so at the time, it was interesting. We had these clients who were being really abusive with us, and we were running around doing all this different work for them. And I realized, wait a minute, this is not okay. I really don't want to be living with this amount of stress. So we ended up firing those clients. And when I fired those clients, there was this kind of strange liberation that happened when I realized, wait a minute, I'm worthy of being treated better. I'm working really hard. I give really great results. So I don't have to be in this much fear. I don't have to worry that we're not going to have enough and have to tolerate this kind of behavior. So when I released my distortion patterns, not only did we not work with those clients who were abusive anymore, the types of clients that we started to attract were of a much higher resonating order, a lot more fun, and actually a lot more affluent. So when I started to release my distortion patterns, everything started to change. Until I released those distortion patterns, nothing in my reality was really going to shift. I would have just kept suffering with those same abusive clients, and I wouldn't have found those other clients who were so much better. So until you release your distortion patterns, your reality, who's in it, how you feel about it, what can happen in terms of your level of abundance won't shift. So what is a distortion pattern, and how do you get rid of it? So when you come into embodiment, here you are, this sphere of pure source energy vibrating at a very unique rate. That unique rate of vibration is what makes you, you, and me. Now, in order to come into an embodied experience, which is dense and lower in vibration than you as consciousness. You need to drop in vibration. When you drop in vibration, these layers and layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of what look like duct tape to me form around the sphere of pure source energy that is you. So the thing is, with duct tape, it's really, really heavy, especially when there are a lot of layers around it. So what happens? Well, the vibrational level of the sphere drops. And not only does the vibrational level of the sphere drop, you believe that all around you is layers and layers of duct tape. That's what you see. That's what you believe your reality is. You forget that all around you, in all directions infinitely, is pure source. So you believe the limitation of your duct tape. Now, the duct tape is a metaphor for your distortion patterns, and your distortion patterns mainly come from things like your lineage or what your ancestors experienced. Now, the field of epigenetics is showing that what your ancestors experienced very much impacts how your genes express and the limitations and the choices that you think you have. The other thing is your cultural conditioning, your religious conditioning, or distortion patterns. Now, the thing is, even if you were brought up in a household that was agnostic, your lineage definitely was influenced by religion, so it's there in the field of frequencies that is you. There's also your past lives. So that's a short list of what most of your distortion patterns come from. So how do you know that you're running into a distortion pattern? Well, you likely have noticed it because it causes you a tremendous amount of discomfort and or pain, meaning it's that place where you always have challenge no matter what you're doing, whether you're doing the coaching, the therapy, the personal development, the meditation seminars, the visualization, whatever the heck it is, you're still running into the same challenge over and over again, whether it's low self-worth or relationship or it's something that you're struggling with in terms of abundance. That's how you know that it's a distortion pattern that's running in your field. So how do you get rid of these distortion patterns so that your frequency resonance can rise and you can experience a much better version of your life? Well, hang in there with me because I'm going to outline the 3-step magic formula to raising your frequency resonance in takeaway number 3. If you want to start to raise your resonance so you can have more momentum to get to whatever it is that you want to experience in your life, then click on the link in the description below for my free Frequency Resonance Accelerator group frequency calibration. Takeaway number 3. There's a 3-step formula to raise your frequency resonance. I have a client named Linda who found me and frequency work when she'd just been promoted to manager of a team. Now that sounds amazing, but for her, it created a lot of stress because this team was all guys and she'd never managed a team of all guys before. And there was already friction in the team because not all the men were super excited that their new manager was a woman. Now, Linda is recognizing, wait a minute, I have all of these patterns that are coming up. Like I feel defensive, I don't feel confident, I feel like I'm being undermined. So we worked together, where I helped her to release her distortion patterns around low self-worth and non-deserving and being defensive and angry and not being able to be witnessed. A whole bunch of distortion patterns I helped to release at the level of the field or at the level of the quantum or frequency level. Now, she did her part because she did something that I call confirm the removal, which means that she stands in her authority as co-creator and says, that distortion pattern is no longer mine. And as she releases her distortion patterns, her frequency resonance starts to rise and things start to change radically at work. She is inspired to bring in new solutions, new ideas. And because her frequency resonance is higher, her team members also start to shift and they start to soften and be open to these new ideas, these new solutions. So they're like, actually, this is a really good way of doing things. This team starts to gel. They come together. There's more trust within the team members. And now the team is moving really coherently. They're no longer moving from crisis to crisis. They are able to adapt and flow together and take in new ideas and problem solve in a whole new way. So if you raise your frequency resonance using this 3-step process, which is step 1, to be aware of the distortion pattern. Step 2, to release the distortion pattern at the level of the field or at the quantum level. Step 3, to confirm the removal of that distortion pattern, then your reality can reorganize around you in a surprisingly fast way. Now, this is what I mentioned earlier. It may sound simple, but often the most powerful tools are the simplest. I mean, even if you just think about your toothbrush, here you are using this very simple tool every day, twice a day, but it's really critical to avoid gum disease, to avoid rotting teeth when you're much older. And not only that, but it keeps you having a healthy heart. So this tiny little tool that you take for granted that's very simple can have a really powerful effect. So if you'd like to learn more about how to confirm the removal, because it's such an important part of this 3-step process, then check out my next video. I'll see you inside.